So I'm going to take you through the different legs to the system. And the first leg, every country has one more or less, is the state pension. So that says, regardless of whether you've saved privately or whatever, you're going to have something to live on in retirement. And the way it works is that since 2016, there has been a new state pension, what I wrote. I reinvented the state pension. It was the thing I cared about most of all, because the old state pension was very unfair. It was very unfair to women. And if I tell you, for example, so if I tell you that the national insurance system was born after the Second World War, Beveridge, 1948, and all of that, brilliant, brilliant set of reforms, but in a world where, and I say this deliberately, men needed pensions and women needed husbands. That was the world in which it was created. So the assumption was a man would go out and have a job, earn a wage, look after his family, and his wife would bring up the children, probably wouldn't have a wage, and therefore she was dependent on him, and the whole system was based around women being dependent on men. There was even something called the married woman's reduced rate, where a married woman could put less into the system, because after all, she didn't need a pension of her own because she had a husband. And if I tell you that when we rewrote all of these rules in 2014, because these things last for decades and decades and decades, we still had to think about the position of women who'd opted to pay less in because they had husbands. Those features of the system that you wouldn't think in 2014 we even had to think about were still there. So on average, women got smaller state pensions than men. And I didn't think that was right. So under the new system, you have to put 35 years in to get a full state pension. 35 years of what? Well, when you earn, when you have a wage, you pay national insurance. And if you pay a year's national insurance, that gives you a year towards your 35 for a full pension. But not just paying national insurance gets you a year towards your pension, a year of doing something that society thinks is valuable, caring for a young child, caring for an elderly or disabled person, also gets you a credit. So the revolutionary thing about the new state pension is, if you spend a year running a FTSE 100 company in the city, and a year caring for an elderly or disabled person, you build up exactly the same state pension. And that's revolutionary. So, going forward, for those of you who've yet to start in paid work, as long as over the course of your working life you put 35 years in the system, you will get the flat pension, which is about £8,000 a year, a bit more. And that's the challenge. £8,000 a year is not what most people are going to want to retire on, is it? The average wage, give or take, is probably 3 times that, 27,000, something like that. Most people, when they've earned, aren't going to want to see their wage slump by 2/3. So that state pension gets people to the start. Now, I'm just going to say a word about the age at which you can draw that state pension. At the moment, just about, till the end of this year, it's 65 for men, slightly less for women, but rising to 65. But after this year, nobody, man or woman, will be able to get a pension at 65. In 2020, it will be 66. In 2028, it will be 67. 2039-ish, it will be 68. And for our sixth form colleagues here today, the good news is it will probably start with a 7, but not an 8. So I would be astonished. So my kids are at university at the moment. Take my 20-year-old daughter, please. No, sorry. Take my 20-year-old daughter. Let's suppose the statisticians think she will live to 95. So that's a 75-year adult life. The way it's going to work is that we will, on average, spend 2/3 of our adult life in work and 1/3 in retirement. So 2/3 of 75 is... Yeah, just checking, just checking. I can't see anybody's face, you see, so I don't even know if your eyes are open. But so 2/3 of 75 is 50. So you start, let's say, at 20, 50 years of adult life in work till 70, 25 years in retirement. So if, and we might hear a bit more about technology later on and all of that, but if we go on living longer and longer and longer, and there's some dispute about whether that's still happening, I think it will, personally, but it's sort of slowed down a bit, then that pension age will go up by effectively 8 months for every extra year we live, and then retirements will go up by 4 months. So retirements will get longer, but they'll start later. You need to get your head around it, because people talk about work till you drop, but on average, people will be working for longer, draw a pension later, but then get that pension for longer. That's the way it's going to work. So there's a huge issue, obviously. You can think of a whole bunch of jobs you just couldn't do at 70 or 69 or 68. The challenge is not to start paying people pensions very early, but to enable people not to have one job that they do until they're completely worn out, burnt out, can't work anymore, and then there's this big gap till the pension starts. But we need, as a society, to get people ready to have 2 jobs, 3 jobs, 4 jobs, this career, that career, retrain, move from this to that, be flexible, and all of that. And we're a long way away from that at the moment. But that's the world that the next generation is going to move into, I think.